makes this Lancaster Woodturners Weekly Coffee Hour number 210, I think, for July 11th, 2024. I'm seeing 34 on screen right now. I recognize most of you. Anybody who's new here, you're welcome to show us work, to introduce yourself, stick your hand up and in some way, or let me know you'd like to do that. You don't have to learn how to share screen. You can just hold it up in front of your face. I'm going to show some stuff and ask some questions a little later, but I see a bunch of hands up I'm going to go to first, and I know that we owe Toby a moment. But first of all, announcements. Lancaster Woodturners Open Shop is this coming Saturday, 9 to noon at our space in New Holland. Anybody within driving range of that is welcome to show up and bring your tools, bring your wood, or bring your wallet, because there's lots of wood there that you can get cheap. And bring your wood turning questions. And we'll have a few experts there. We usually do, who will be usually delighted to steer you right or wrong, at least to talk to you about it, whatever it is. So Saturday morning, 9 to noon this week. And let me see. 2 nights ago was the Harrisburg Club meeting. I don't know if there's any report from that. Randy, anything you want to say about the Harrisburg Club?
Yes, we had Martin Stolpe talk about his experiences with wood, and shared a lot of interesting stories. You know Martin.
Yeah.
And we had a good time.
Anybody who doesn't know Martin, he's a retired forester. He's a World War II vet. He'll make sure to let you know that. And he was a drill sergeant. He'll make sure to let you know that as well. Very interesting guy. He's got wood stashed all over the place in the county. He's trying to give it away, but you got to prove you're worthy before you can have it. And, like that. Martin's a character. He used to be the forester for the city of Lancaster, and he still is a forester. So when interesting trees come down from historical locations, Martin's usually there to catch the wood. And every so often he has the saw down over at the Manheim Township Recycle Center, where the compost boxes and logs go. He brings in a bandsaw mill, saws up the timber, you help, and you get planks pretty cheap. So Martin Stolpe is a good guy to have your eye on if he turns up at a club near you. I don't know if he belongs to any clubs anymore, but he's known to show up anywhere in the 5-county area around here. I think he spends his summers in Montana, so you might even run into him out there.
Randy, was that program recorded?
Randy, did you record that meeting?
We did.
So that might show up on the Susquehanna site.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to Tim about that. See if we can get it posted on our YouTube. Yes, and Martin is a unique character. He's always entertaining and a wealth of information. Yeah. He had a book with him. I'd have to go down and look at my copy, but it's called The Trees of Eastern and Southeastern United States. It is a compendium of almost every tree species that grows east of the Mississippi River. And it is about that thick. And I do have a copy of my own. And Martin said it's a good book to have. He said that's one of about 20 books that this gentleman has written about different areas. So
that is a good one. I think I have a copy of it here somewhere as well. And I need to find it. I got some trees I'd like to identify. Somebody had something. My friend had a tree in his yard that he didn't know what it was. I think it's honey locust, but we got to look at the books. Let's see.
John,
anybody else?
Yeah. Just as an aside, there is a place on the internet where if you take a picture of a leaf, it will tell you the species of tree that leaf may come from.
Yes, and there's several places that'll do that. Some of them work better than others. Problem with that usually is that when I'm out looking at the leaf, I don't have any blocks on my phone. I can't get on the internet. So it's like that.
Okay. Picture.
Yeah, take a picture and do it later. Good morning, all y'all. Up to 41, it looks like right now. I'm going to go to the show of hands. I'm going to start with Toby because we gave him the short sheet last week and cut him off. So, Toby, carry the ball if you can.
Alrighty. I'm going to share my screen. Got it?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, this is what I started with last week. This is a maple stump that I had sitting around. And after I got it finished, I thought, well, I should have taken a picture of that before I started turning. So you saw, you know, the natural wood. So I had a piece left over. And here it is. You seeing that one okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, there's a drive center there to show you the size. And this was the piece, and I decided I was going to cut off this mark here and up here and here. And this piece right in the center here was going to be the top of the next piece that I'm going to turn. There's another area.
When you turn wood like this, and the way you just showed us, what's your sanding routine?
Sanding after I get it all turned?
Yeah.
Well, depending on how good of a finish I get off the tool, I start 150, 120, and then go up to 320.
Do you do it by hand or with a disc?
Mostly by hand, yeah.
Do you like work extra hard on the little bits of end grain that come through, or do you?
Generally, I can get a pretty good cut on even on the end grain, even on some punky wood. With a nice slicing cut, you can get a pretty good finish. You don't need to go too low on the grits.
Okay.
So this is like I say, this is gonna be the top of it, and the bottom will be, well, behind there, straight behind it. And this is how it ended up. Of course, I dyed it.
Hey, Toby, before you go away from that one, if you go back to it, I think it's a globe. It's a picture of the globe with the North Pole melted down. It's the future.
Oh, this one?
No,
Yeah,
the first one.
Yeah.
If you look at it straight on, the first one you showed.
Right here.
No, back, keep going back, keep going.
He means the other piece. He means the other piece.
This one.
I mean the other piece, that one. If you go back one more, I think. Don't you think it looks like a globe, but the North Pole has melted away?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that.
Kind of much.
When I was making it, I was thinking, what kind of looks like a gumball machine?
Well, that too. In some ways, that's what our world is, a gumball machine.
Yeah. All right, let me catch up here. Okay, so here's the piece I got out of the leftovers. And it's similar to the original piece. I couldn't make it round because of what was left on the top of it, but interesting shape.
Nice color too.
Yeah, I just put blue dye on it. That's how it comes out. If
Blue dye.
see here on
green.
the inside, it's a go ahead.
So I thought that was green dye. So that's blue on yellowish wood, in other words.
Correct. The interior here, I have one coat on, and the exterior, I put two coats, but it's just blue dye. And that's just how it combines with the color of the wood.
And you send that back, I think. Yeah.
After I put the dye on?
Yeah.
No. I just put the dye, let it dry, and then I coat it with the spray.
So you don't sand it for raised grain after wetting it with the dye.
I do go over a little bit with one of those 3M pads, but not much, just to take the roughness off of it. Because I do mix the dye with water, and it does raise the grain a little bit.
And do you do any black dye as a preliminary to lift up the curl or anything?
I tried doing that, and to me, it seemed like a whole lot more work for very little benefit. So I don't do it anymore.
John, that works really well with burls, but where you can penetrate well and sand it back. But other woods, that approach with the black may not work.
Yes, if it doesn't have a lot of figure in it. It won't make any difference at all, right?
Well, I got some experience with that this week. I'll show it in a little bit after you other guys wind down, if you do.
This is elm burl here. It's kind of a different shape for me. I have a lot of this around, and it's been dry for years, so I just cut a piece off, throw it on the lathe, and turn it, and it's, you know, once and done.
Boy, you sure have an eye for how to do that.
Well, it's from watching things on YouTube and talking to you guys. Everybody
a
gets
lot,
ideas.
Gorgeous grain in that.
a lot of time at the lathe.
This is a piece of white oak burl that someone brought me, a giant white oak burl, and said, make me some things out of that. So he stayed while I started cutting it up because he was interested. And then after I got the pieces cut up, I made 11 or 12 pieces, and then he came back when I had some done. He chose about 6 of them, and the rest he let me have.
Nice. How
This,
thick is that? How deep is that platter?
Let's see, 3 inches. This is 12 by 3 inches. I do have a sideway. Now this one, I dyed yellow in the center here, and then because it went out in kind of bands here, I did yellow in the center, and then the next band, I just added a little bit of red to my yellow dye and put a band on, and then a little bit more red. And as I went out to the very edge here, it's kind of an orangey color rather than yellow. And then the back of it here is that final color. It's kind of a subtle transition there, but it's noticeable. It looked like a sunburst to me, kind of. So that's why I tried to do the yellow and the orange. And here's the side view.
Sunburst. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. Here's the side
Right.
view of it. And here's another interesting, this one's only 7 inches across, but I just thought that Ripley's bands in there was very interesting.
Boy, that's a winner. That's a winner there. Looks like a painting of a mountain.
Yeah, or a storm over the mountain, yeah.
Huh.
Here's the back of it.
That's also maple?
This is maple, yes. There's a side view of it.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Jeez. Holy cow, yes.
Did you just
Now
dye
I
the one
see-
side of it, or did you dye the whole thing?
No, I dyed the whole thing. This
Interesting.
area over here on the left was the heartwood, and it, you know, it just shows up different when you put the dye on.
It's
You
a
get all
really
these
nice piece.
variations of color in there, depending on the density of the wood.
How big do you say that piece was?
7 inches by 1 inch, 1.5 inches.
Now I see why you have a whole shed full of wood. You can select.
Yeah.
And it's fun to see what comes out of it. This is another piece of maple. It's actually all from the same tree. Most of my maple is all for one load that I got from a woman whose husband was a wood turner, and he passed away, and she contacted me, and I went over, and he had it all cut up. He actually got it at a house auction, and then they were about done with the auction. He said, "What about that tree over there?" So they auctioned off the tree too, and he bought it, cut it down.
Good
Do you
stuff.
have the shape of the piece in mind when you start turning, or do you turn to what's left of the burl?
Generally, I have an idea what I'm going to turn, but yeah, as you go along, things kind of develop, and you think, "Oh, well, that looks kind of neat. I'm going to go with that."
Okay,
Yeah.
nice
I think
stuff.
most people do that. This is another elm burl here. A little bit different shape for me also. This one is, I don't have the size down. Looks like about 10 inches by 8 inches, something like that. Then I make these trees from branches here. This kind of shows the difference. These two on the right are mulberry. So is this one on the left, but I put blue dye on it. So you see how the dye affects the color from natural to the finished product there. I sort of liked how the sapwood on the outside going down the branches sort of looks like snow hanging on it.
So you get all your sanding done before you put the dye on it.
Correct.
Yeah. Maybe that's what I'm doing wrong.
Two more trees. These are walnut. Some spalting down through there. And that is the end of it.
All right. Great show. I'm going to kill your share and see if there's any questions. Okay. Questions for Toby?
Kind of dye do you
Toby, I'd love you to lose the one single light source so that big dark shadow is not behind your pieces, or else put a piece of white card to the left so that it softens that darkness, because I think it's taken away from your gorgeous work. So
Yeah, that's a
I'll work on it. That's more work for me though, but
oh, but you did the work already, so now we need to see it lovely like. It's beautiful stuff. So yep.
Somebody was
Right.
asking what kind of dye.
Yeah, I use TransTint dye almost always. I do have some Procyon MX, which is a clothing dye that I use occasionally, depending on the wood. Sometimes that really makes a difference.
Anybody else? Questions for Toby?
I got a question for Toby. Toby, when you did the trees, you got the bark showing as the base, and then you got the bark as the first branch on the bottom.
Yes.
If you'd taken that off, would it look as good or not? They are very beautiful the way they look.
If I take the bark off, like the one I had on there, it didn't have any bark on the bottom because it was damaged. So I just made it like a base. And the first trees that I showed did not have any bark on them. So I don't know. I like leaving the bark on because it's sort of unique, and I can tell them I made it from a branch, and they can see that the bark's the whole way around there, and they can visualize where it came from.
Well, I like the bark on the very bottom because it makes it look like it's earth that the trees come out of.
Yes,
yes. But the first branch it looked like mud on the branch in contrast. And so I just wondered if you turned it, if the base would look too large with the bark off that bottom branch.
Yeah, I think it would look okay. I just haven't made any like that because when I first started, that's the way I made them, with the bark on both places.
Toby, my question is this, don't your customers make the decision which are the better of the two?
Yeah, but generally they buy them all. So it doesn't, there's always somebody out there that likes one or the other. So
they buy shiny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost probably 90% of the people like a gloss finish.
Yeah, I'm going to move it along. We got a bunch of people with hands up. Thanks very much, Toby. Bruce from Baltimore. Haven't heard from you in a long while. Going to put a spotlight on you. Good to see you. You're muted.
As we were talking about dyeing, I thought I'd pull out a few.
Yeah, go for it. You're good.
Yeah, I got a question on my screen about unmuting, so now I'm good. But I just thought I'd kind of address your comments about black dye, if I can find the right screen here. Okay.
I've been doing some experiments with it, and I find I'm sanding the black dye right off, so it's not doing me any good.
So I guess I do. You have that picture, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So this is a piece of maple burl that had black dye put on first. I use TransTint dyes as well. I also, though, mix them the way Cindy Drozda suggested, which is stronger, 16-to-1 instead of the 32-to-1 that the package says. And I probably sand the piece to about 400 before I put the black dye on. When you're sanding burls like this with the grain going everywhere, it's pretty easy to get a pretty good sanding. but I do take a lot of that dye off. But it's kind of interesting that when you look on the inside, that dye can penetrate all the way to the inside sometimes. But it works best when you have the fibers leading up on the sides like that. And what you see on this piece that's darkened is where the black was, and then the other colors, the blue and the red, are there. If you have the eyes, you don't quite get that dramatic effect. You really get it from the fibers. So if you look at this one, for example, was done the same way, but you really have the effect of the eyes, and you don't see a lot of the black that was there, but it does darken the blue considerably. But
I think I'm seeing more in the other piece, but also in this some, ridges in the wood. They're not ridges really, but I can see the circular marks from turning or sanding. Am I right about that? Because that's what I'm fighting with myself. That's why I'm asking. I'm not trying to put your turning down or anything.
no, it's not a finished piece there, and that was why I wasn't going to show it at all. But I'm looking at it close. You get there's a secondary grain pattern in this piece that you also see that's not necessarily sanding lines. Towards the top there, you see.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. I saw more of it on the other.
That's not a sanding line. Those are actually grain lines that are running every which way in this piece.
Wow.
And you see them over here too. But here some of the black has darkened some of the other areas. But a lot of times, to answer your question about that, I mean, I try and sand a lot with the lathe off, using a power sander, an air powered sander, to get rid of those lines if that's an issue. But sometimes it's there. And then when I take these pieces, I do sand further after I put the dye on, to get some of that out as well. But you have to be careful, because you can put lines in the dye, and that's what also you're trying to avoid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that was my piece here.
Are you using alcohol or water for your mix?
Alcohol. And then I really like, I think I learned this from Cindy as well. When you get the colors on, I have a spray bottle with just alcohol, and put that on over it, and it evens out the color dramatically. That's a really nice little feature, to just wet the thing again with alcohol, and that blends that particular piece. You got some purples where the two colors mixed, and you got the pieces in well, but only alcohol. But you still get some grain raising even with alcohol.
Oh,
I do that mixing with water also. It works.
It works, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm going to try alcohol next. I've been wrestling with this, and I'm at the beginning stages. I've been terrified of dyes. I bought 4 bottles of TransTint dye about 6 months ago, and I just took the lid off one of them this week. That's how afraid of it I am. It's like radioactive.
Wear gloves, because it's a messy thing to work with.
Oh, yeah, gloves. Sure, I got some black on my finger before I figured that out.
Yeah.
Red wine would dye a wood. Do you know, Toby? Would red wine dye wood?
Absolutely, it would.
Sure.
I have a red Bordeaux color. I don't know that it came from wine, but I do have that color.
I've got some. I used to have a table outside of my deck that was pine wood for years. It sat out there partly in the weather, and it had lots of red wine dye on it. Okay, I'm going to move along. Thank you very much, Bruce. Ray.
Let's go here and okay, this is a companion piece that little round dish that I showed you, and this one's actually square, which was quite a challenge, because just holding it and getting a pattern in with 4 sides, but the pattern has 18 bumps, so it doesn't divide out the same. So but if you notice that there's 2, when you square this up on the edge, we got 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom. So lining that up was fun. But it come out pretty good like that. And then this is the bottom. Barley corn is pretty common. People really like that. Light does a lot of effect on that. Now, what the hardest part of this was, this is flipped over, was to cut the bottom. On the last one, I left a little edge there to break this line, But on this one, what I wanted to do was, when I turned this to get this curve, anybody that's turned a square piece knows that, you got to get the corners, got to match. And this cut from the corner to the edge of this foot. Now this foot's been cut back. Just it was a little bit too tall. This last cut down to here and down to here, because that's cut with an eccentric cutter, has to be dead on, because you take the cut, it's all over. And that came out right on the money. And that was like a big sigh of relief when I got through that. And you can see that here is this sweep to here. So that was a challenge, but and this is it again. So
it looks like about 6 inches across.
What's that?
6 inches wide.
No,
6 inches wide.
4 by 4 by 11/16.
And that's what, ebony? Richlite. What is Richlite?
Richlite's a resin. It's a reclaimed paper resin product.
Looks like ebony.
Go ahead.
Looks like ebony.
Yeah, yeah. The thing about it is what's nice about it is when you do a piece like this, you want everything to be the same. So you get into some of the woods and stuff, you start getting a grain pattern, and it really messes up what this looks like. So, and none of that. I didn't waste a piece of exotic wood when I did this. So, thank you. That's it.
It really sucks up the finish, doesn't it? The paper stuff.
What's that?
It really sucks up the finish.
Yeah, I think it will. I'm going to try. I haven't put any on that because I knew I was going to do 2. I'm going to try Odie's oil on that and see what it does. I know people have had success with the Odie's oil.
I did Environ, which was the same kind of thing, recycled paper and gorgeous stuff. Made pens and all kind of things out. But the first coat of finish, my God, it went right. It's like pouring finish on a newspaper. Right in.
And the process for this, what's interesting is, so I've seen some stuff that what they do is they just make a mix, and like a slurry, like you see some of the guys are doing just pours. This isn't done that way. This is done in layers like plywood. So next week I'll bring a piece of the edge of what this looks like. Very interesting, but it's very labor intensive.
Oh, wait.
That's
I'm going
it.
to go. I'm going to go over to you, Duxbury, since you're talking and you haven't been here for a while. What would you want to show us today?
Well, a while ago, you got me. A while ago, I showed you this.
Yeah, I love it.
And I found out making these big pieces is a lot of fun, but takes a lot of time. But by making smaller pieces, you can you don't waste as much material or the time. So this is the same. This is a similar design. It's got the circle on the bottom here, and then everything radiates off of that. This is a right. What?
This is using your Dux Chuck, yeah?
Yeah. And this is about probably 1 1/8 inches off the center. So this is the center of the piece here. And then these are all tangent radiuses off of that. So, and that's fun. I found out before I was turning this the other way around, and I was turning into this, and it's really hard to start over here and end up at the right place over here. So after you make enough of these, you do get smart. This is now turned the other way around. The center of this is off of the piece. So, and by turning on the right hand and the left hand side of the thing, you can make right and left.
My word, it blows me away. That's amazing.
I never turned on the other side of my lathe. In fact, I couldn't get a screw to lock my chuck. I don't know what the thread is on that. I went to Lowe's. I tried every daggone thread in the place. I came home and tapped the thing 5/16, 16 or whatever it is. So now I have set screws that fit. But anyway, Now keep that in mind. Now that's one way of doing things. This is a Dux Chuck that usually you make these square. You put this in the lathe you take 2 jaws off your chuck. You put this in your lathe, and when you put something in here that has a tenon on it, you pinch down, you can slide this sideways. And it's intuitive how much you've gone off center. When you go to another dimension, you cut this at an angle. Now,
Oh,
my.
jeez.
now this is 3 pieces. You can't do this any other way. These are, if you look at this flat ways, I should have made a bigger one. I have to make a bigger one. Anyway, flat ways. This has a 10.62 degree slant here. If you know the distance out here and you know the height you want to go, you can do the math. It's a tangent function to give you the angle to set that at. But anyway, this way you can set this at an angle like this and turn a flat surface out here. You can't do that any other way. So there's 3 flat surfaces with 3. I just put these in here to show that it could be done. I'm not too sure what to do with it, but anyway, I can do it.
It's a pendant. It's a pendant, man. Drill a hole in and put some leather through it.
No, it's got a screw hole on the top. It's going to be, yeah. But my wife's got pendants for the next 48 years or something. This is another one. This fits on the bigger chuck, the stronghold chuck. But this is made square and they cut to 20 degrees. So this offsets your whole chuck and gives you a 4th dimension over here that you can actually turn a flat, or you can offset that. This one.
So have you done anything like that yet?
With this one, yeah, I've got a piece. I don't have it in here, but it's kind of crude with 2 flat surfaces.
And what's the theory with having it be 2 pieces with pins rather than that just grabs better?
Well, yeah, this is limited. It pinches on the end here.
Yeah.
But you got to cut it exact. And when you get stuff bigger, I don't know, it was kind of nice rather than depend on this end of the wood gets pretty thick too. So when you start drilling holes through this end of the wood, it doesn't want to pinch as good. So being thicker, I just put pins in it, and it works really nice this way. But you make the whole thing square, and they cut this angle in there. And that angle is specific to what you're making.
So in other words, you're going to end up with a whole box full of these things before long.
No, I already have. I already have it. Oh, I got to show them that. This is a box made out of cherry. And this is the lid of the box.
Jeez.
Jim, is there any chance you could make a video of that particular pattern, that seashell looking pattern?
A video.
Well, we want to see you do it.
I mean, a video of the setup and the steps in making it.
Yeah,
actually, I have a face for radio. I probably could do a video. I don't know. I'm a wood turner. I don't do much in videos. I don't have time. I don't even have time to make all these. I got dozens of these I could make. I can think faster than I can turn. Oh, the inside of this has also got matching.
Oh, jeez.
Cut into it.
You're going to drive me to one of those chucks. I've been avoiding it, but I can't see it.
Oh, it's addicting. Oh man, I got stuff turned out. There you can't believe. Anyway, now I know this is actually turned to figure out what I could do with this thing once I got it made. Now I can make these things. Like, what do you do with them? Also, the neat part of this is it's turned. This is turned with the lathe going normally, counterclockwise. So the cut is starting It's like this. You can see this better. The cut is starting here and coming around to there. If you turn this one the other way around, as this thing's coming around, you have to start here and hope to get to the right point here. And that's damn near impossible. That's how I did this big one. And this big one is the cut starts out here and comes into here. But now I can offset this and put it on the other side of the lathe. When you put it on the other side of the lathe and turn in reverse, now you're cutting from here and coming around this way. And you can do this a little easier. It's still not great, but anyway.
Jim, what are you making the groove cut with? Like a detail gouge or what? What tool are you using when you go that arc?
I start on the smaller ones. I start with a point tool, and I pick up where I want to go, the first cut, and define that. And then I use a 3/8 spindle gouge to broaden that and shape it the way I want it.
And how in the heck do you sand it, or don't you bother? You cut it.
I don't. You can't sand this on here. This is especially on the outside. On the little ones, it's just going around. But on this big one, my God, that thing's flying around like this. You know, you've only got this much of this whole circle that's going around. You're only hitting here to here.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of space in between. In fact, don't try this if you're not a pretty good turner, because you could get hurt doing this. This thing's flying around like this, and it's not a fun afternoon. I hold my breath when I do this one. Okay.
Seems to me it would be maybe safer or whatever to do it in a bigger piece of wood and then saw it out of a bigger piece of wood.
Well, Range, you should ask. Here's the layout for doing that. Okay. with a 2.5 inch disc, I need a 5.5 inch total disc to make that out of, and then cut. And then once you got it made, you got to figure out where the thing is to cut it out. So that has possibilities, John. You're on the right track. Anyway, that's me.
Hey Jim, where are you located? I mean, somebody got to video this.
Graham, North Carolina. Come on down.
How close is that to Winston-Salem?
That's very close, maybe an hour.
50 miles.
55, 60 miles.
My son lives down there, and I get to visit him occasionally. But I can also guess you probably would not enjoy waiting for the video shenanigans that go on while they're doing it.
I did one video, Pratt, what was his name? Phil Pratt did it in my shop, and my God, I tell you.
No, you got to do video the way I do it. Just shoot.
Just shoot. So no redos. We shot, I think it only took a day to shoot it, but my God, he spent, I'll bet, a month editing that thing and screwing around with it. He'd send me all these things. And anyway, I love to turn, like I said, I have a face for radio. So I kind of, I got too much to do to do. I've been asked to do IRDs and all that stuff. And, you know, life's too short. I got other things to do.
Well, maybe if we got somebody like Bowman there who would just turn the camera on and shoot you doing whatever you do. No restarts, no redos. Just be there.
Go to somebody else. I can show the thing on the lathe. I don't have that up for screen share, but
another day, we'd love to see it.
Yeah. I got a few. Go ahead.
Oh, you got more to show?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to, let's see, what do I have to do? I want to get back to the regular view here. I'm sorry, I've been experimenting with views too. Okay.
I removed the spotlight for you.
Okay. Don Smith.
Hello, everybody. Well, this week I've made a banana boat, of which I've taken some photographs as I've made it. So I'll go into screen share. This is a piece of wood which is 8 inches long, 3 inches thick, and it's got a flat on one side which I put through a planer. And before I drilled it, I put it onto the drew up the center on the flat and got that as central as possible. Put that onto the headstock on a live center on the headstock. Brought my tailstock up until I could find that the piece stayed, when you turned it round by hand, that it stayed in line. I then pierced.
We're only seeing the drill press. We need to see another picture here.
Yep. You've got a drill press?
Yep, that's what I got.
Yeah. Yeah. I suddenly realized when I got to that point, I should have photographed the other two pieces, which I'm talking about. So once I brought my tailstock up and found that it was stationary, not turning on itself, I then took it off and I drilled on the outer part of the trunk a hole in the bottom. And there's my button, there it is. There's the hole drilled, and you'll see that I've cut 2 pieces out of the wood so that when that went into my chuck, I was right inside that hole and it was being held for turning purposes. That's the piece mounted on the lathe. You can now see the flat part and the square edges. And the next one, I've got it going round. I have the tailstock up and I've started to turn it with a 1/2 inch bowl gouge.
How fast?
That's about 1100.
Aha, it looks like a propeller.
Yeah, it does. You can see that it has a foot on it as well now, and I'm just shaping up to get it to a complete banana shape on the bowl. That shows you the process going through. It's not quite there yet. As you can see from the flat here, I've still got to take this round a bit more to get to the edge of the bark. Next. And there we are with the base now completely turned, ready for sanding. And I sanded it with a power sander on a drill, inch and a half pad with different grit sanding papers. And I then finished that off with just pure sander sealer, and it's not polished at this much time. It's just sander sealer on the reverse. Reversed it on the lathe, as you can see, ready to be turned into the bowl. And here we are turning away the bowl, the center of the bowl, still with a 1/2 inch bowl gouge. Whipping around. And there we are, almost to the point of finishing. I've got to do another couple of cuts on this to take out the tooling marks, which I have here. So I went to the grinding wheel and sharpened my tool before I took my final cut. And back here. When I'd finished it and sanded it, and I put the center sealer on, I put my buffing mop on, and I buffed the piece. There's the back being buffed, as you can see. And that is the last piece I have on the share. I'll show you the finished item here. That's the finished piece.
Very, very nice.
And
I'm impressed.
is Laburnum.
I'm impressed you kept all the bark.
Absolutely. No barks come off at all. and it's about 6 months old, the piece of wood.
So it was taken down in winter.
Yes, it was, yes. So that's the piece. So I thought.
And is laburnum a hardwood or a softwood?
It's a very hardwood.
So it's a leaf bearing tree, not a needle tree.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have laburnum here except maybe in the form of hedges.
Yeah, I didn't know this over here. It grows quite. I mean, this was a piece, as you can see, this is the size of the branch that it came from.
Something else. Very nice.
And the beauty of this is that on this side, it's further out because of the bow in the bar and the branch than what this side is, but it is equal about the center. If you look there and there.
Very impressive. Beautifully turned.
So after what Jim was showing us, I thought I'd do a piece and show how I do things over here.
Now, you're power sanding that with a sanding pad on a drill, yeah?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, power sanding the whole thing.
And how thick? What are you using as a backing for the sanding disc?
It's a hook and
No, I mean,
yeah.
How thick is there a foam, some foam in there or something else to give it resilience?
Yeah, it's a foam pad. It's a product made by Simon Hope, and you buy this whole package, and you have 6 sanding discs in there, which you can then cut your own 1.5 discs, and you can change them as and when. But you don't have to keep. The beauty of it is because you've got 6. You don't have to keep taking it off and putting another one on, taking it off, put another one on, just use the 6, just drop them out the drill.
What I'm wondering is how soft is the foam back, is the resilient part, the foam that's underneath the pad. Is that very soft, very resilient, or quite stiff?
Well, what I can do, whilst you're talking to somebody else, just before we go off, I'll go and get one and show you.
All right, I'd like that.
Yeah.
Hey, Don, I've got a question for you.
Yes.
Yeah, Don, your technique of finding center, that I just clicked in my brain. You're actually using a live center in your headstock, so you get rid of the friction of your headstock when you're finding center, right? Is that what, did I understand that correctly?
That is correct.
So you put a live center in your headstock and a live center in your tailstock, and then you let it spin and readjust it until it perfectly balances?
Yeah, I leave the center point of the flat is left on the live center on the headstock, and just adjust it on the tailstock end.
And you're just using that to get the an indication where center is. So you just poke a hole in it when you punch your live center in there to just mark the actual center balance point.
That's correct. But yeah.
Thanks, Don. That's interesting. I would have never thought of that. That's I've always wondered how to get it, but the friction of my headstock was always too much. I had to have a heavy piece to do it, but on a small piece, that's brilliant.
Yeah, because if you don't do that, if you've got the lathe and you've got a dead center in it, you're relying on the lathe to turn. Whereas with your live center, the wood's doing the turning for you. The lathe's not doing anything at all. It's just the wood turning and your pressure on your 2 points.
Yeah, exactly right. Good, very good method. Yeah. Any other questions for Don?
Thanks for your comments, everybody, as well. They're much appreciated.
Good morning, Ziegler. What do you got? What do you have?
Good morning. I'm going to share my screen. Hold on.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So from that black cherry tree that we took down, and I made the blanks for Ernie's workshop. I had some wood left over, and Patty always wanted a salad bowl. So let me see if I can get this to move. Okay. Now it won't. Here we go.
Here we go. Got it.
Got
Oh,
it?
we had it. We had it. Now, yeah, now we got it again. Got it.
Okay. So that was the blank. It was rather thin here. It was probably 14 and a half inches or so. The bark really was making it spin. It was balanced. And I also learned, thanks to Ray, that I actually didn't have my jaw set up properly on the chuck. So that was part of the problem. But it still gave me headache getting through it. So I was gonna turn it twice, but then I got the chuck set up properly. And you can see, even though that we had this tree taken down last fall, the trunk that was still wet, you could see the moisture on the second image coming out of the wood. And
what did you learn about your chuck? I'm interested in what that is. What's the information there?
Well, I was fairly ignorant. I know the smaller Nova chucks that I have had little markings to show how the jaws were cut when they made them, and so you could match up 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 and so on and so forth. Didn't realize that the bigger jaws that I had from the Nova chuck also had numbers, and so I reoriented then. But I also didn't trust the big Nova chuck that I had, so I bought a one-way, and I used the one-way chuck, and that helped resolve it when I put it back on the lathe. And then that, coupled with the fact that I turned all of the bark off, it had dried a little bit, even though I put it in a paper bag with sawdust. So I got it finally turning nicely because it was chattering like mad. And so I hollowed it out. I reverse chucked it. I used the chuck or the jaws itself as a jam chuck. Unfortunately, I didn't put enough cushion, and so there was a telltale of the chuck outline compressed into the cherry wood. So I had to sand the hell out of that to get that out. But at least I did get it turned, and that was the outcome. You can also see a bit of the sanding line that has gone away now. I sanded that out to an extent. So that was the final product. And then I decided I needed to make some salad spoons. Even though we have some, I thought I should make wooden ones. So I went online and I found the first one that came up was Ernie turning his salad spoons. So I had a nice piece of spalted maple. I thought, well, they'll make some nice serving spoons. Well, I didn't have the bowl with me, and I guess I overestimated slightly how big to make the spoons. You can see here that Angelo told me they look more like oars for a canoe.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. So, and Patty goes, what do you think my is she? So we figured that that's not going to be, we're not going to be using that for salad spoons. I'm going to repurpose them somehow. But now for some reason I can't get back to, okay, stop the share. Here we go. So this is the bowl.
That's a nice bowl. That's a good big one.
Yeah, it's about the blank, I think, like I said, was just over 14. This is 12 and a half inches, I think. It's gone out around now, but that's fine. I don't care about that.
Does that bark inclusion go all the way through? I see that it does.
It does, and that was fun because there was a little pinhole that went all the way through, so it took me a little while to get that fully filled in.
And what did you fill that in with?
Black CA glue. And then here are the oars. They're just huge. So we'll be repurposing these.
I think they would make a great Halloween decoration somehow.
Yeah, I said to Pat, if we had a gigantic tomato, like spaghetti sauce pot, we could use it for that also. And then I had a few more of those cherry blanks, and one started to split, so I just made this silly little, I thought it was going to be a little flower pot. Patty says she wants to put pens and sewing implements in it. But the interesting thing is there's almost like a little landscape inside. It looks like a tree with a mountain. So that's what I had.
All right.
John, may I ask a question?
Certainly.
When I sand cherry, I get sanding marks that I can never seem to get out. It's a really pain sanding cherry. So your bowl didn't look like it had any of those. So what was your technique, please?
Oh, believe me, I had sanding marks, but I'm still experimenting with sanding, and sometimes, especially on the bigger bowl, I initially started using my smaller sanding pads with the foam on it. The foam pad's probably just over 1/4 of an inch on all my little discs, but I used the 3-inch disc because the bowl is certainly big enough to accommodate that. But I also find that when I have certain spots, like I had a little bit of tear out on the two ends of the bowl, I just hand sand it. I spin it back and forth while I'm using the power sander, and then sometimes I'll just get a block of foam sandpaper, like a foam block, and I'll use that as a backing pad, and I'll use what is it called, the Abranet or whatever, and I'll use that to at a fairly high speed. I'll spin the lathe slowly if I'm using the power sander, but I turn it at a higher speed, and I just put it, from whatever grit I need to start up, and I'll go up to 400 or so. And the foam backing helps me, and I do it fairly gently. I found that the gentle pressure is actually a whole lot more effective. Let the sandpaper do the work, not because I'm just going to grind more marks into the sandpaper, into the bowl otherwise. So that's what I've been doing. And then I've also been using some, it's not Axminster paste, but it's something like that. It's sanding grit. And I'll use that sometimes to try to take the rest of those marks off.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, John, can I make a suggestion?
Please.
If you were disappointed in the jaws making indents on the interior of your bowl,
yeah.
One thing that worked is kind of silly, but it worked. Take a roll of masking tape, not a full roll, but down to where there's maybe a 1/2 inch or so of tape left on it. Then use the jaws of your chuck as an expansion and go inside. And that way you kind of end up with a jam chuck and a little bit of a friction from the tape. That's kind of a, I don't know, old school, I guess, but just a suggestion. It's a beautiful piece of wood.
You won't be using that for anything else after that, though. You'll be like jamming the tape together into a solid block by the time you get done with that maneuver.
We use just like a almost empty roll. You don't want to use a full roll, but if you get it down to like 1/4 inch or something, it still conforms, and it will deform, I guess, to the shape of the bowl and give plenty of friction. But yeah, you're right. Don't start with full roll. I don't know what you'd end up with.
Don't try and use that tape for something else afterward.
Right. I think if I had just put another layer of the shelf liner stuff on there, it probably would have given me a better cushion. I just didn't realize how much I was going to bruise the wood when I tightened it up.
And that's the thing with green wood; you can bruise it very easily.
Yeah. And so I spent this morning looking at, among others, Mike Peace's vacuum chuck video again, because I think one of them might be in my near future.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Once you go there, you go back. It's absolutely a great thing.
Yeah.
We're right up to 11 o'clock, and I see Harold Mills had his hand up here, and we haven't heard from you, Harold. So you'll be first up next week if you could join us. Is that all right with you?
Perfect.
Okay.
John, I've got in front of me that sanding.
Just a minute. Yeah, go ahead and show it.
That's the kit.
I'm trying to get you up to spotlight.
With the different departments, that's how it comes. And the disc is made up of a mandrel. Oh, I disappeared. A mandrel, a solid, fairly solid pad is just, but on top of that, there is a softer pad.
That's still fairly firm though. That's
But
what
it's
I'm
still
looking
a
at.
very firm pad.
Yeah, that's what I need to experiment with, is firmer pads than I've been using. So
Yeah.
that's the clue for me.
And the
John,
kick
before
ring
before you
also
wrap
comes
up,
with a 2-inch one.
I just had a quick question about Wood Turning magazine, since we have Don and probably some other folks that get it. But I found I didn't get it, and then this past month I got like 5 issues in 4 weeks. And I was trying to figure out if that's a mail issue or the journal itself. But I know my other friends local got the same thing. So I just trying to figure out if that's something going on with their publishing or their mailing. Does anyone else have?
I've had the same issue, Bruce.
Okay.
I get it
They're-
every month.
I've no idea because I gave up because I got fed up of paying for adverts.
They are a fairly disorganized company, and you're dealing with postal system in 2 countries, so anything could be happening in between.
That's I just
It
want.
could be at their end, and it could be the post office.
All right. Well, thanks.
Probably got the wrong stamp on it.
I got mine monthly. I've gotten them every month. Whatever.
They tend to do stuff erratically sometimes, and then they forget, and then they resume again. So anything can happen. Anyway, we'll see you all next week. Thank you all. Very entertaining hour. Anyway, we'll see you all next week. Thank you all. Very entertaining hour.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, everybody. Cheers. Bye.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.